One. What's up? What's up? Coach D here, the Shift Method Podcast, coming to you with another great episode. You know, I had to get another physical therapist on the podcast, so I had to pull up my boy. Haven't talked too much in a long time, but good chance to catch up, talk about all things physical therapy, and that is my good friend Keandre. Keandre, can you introduce yourself to the people, let them know who you are?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My name is Keandre Mais, DPT, CSCS. I've known D-Man for ever since I went to FAU. We had a great relationship over at Campus Rec and built a bond that has continued to flourish to this day. So I'm happy to be here. I'm ready to get this show on the road.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's right. We came from that good Campus Rec background, man. That's where we started. As we were talking before we started the podcast, that's where we kind of talked about our dreams and what we want to do. I talked about, owning a gym or starting my own business, and you talked about being a physical therapist. And here we are, man. Here we are.
It's actually supposed to be you, me, and DJ. But DJ is out in Texas doing this thing, so hopefully one day we will rekindle and bring that back.
Absolutely, just get everyone together. Chris, Morgan, Zach, get everyone back together.
Everybody,
Aubrey, of course. Absolutely, man, absolutely. So, like I mentioned, big thing we're going to talk about today, kind of similar to the podcast I did with Morgan, because she's wrapping up PT school, giving people insight on kind of the whole process of going through physical therapy school. A lot of my people who watch this are, in fact, exercise science students or in the field of health, fitness, and wellness. So I think it's always good to get perspective on what it's actually like being in the field. Before we get into that, though, Keandre, kind of like just let people know, like, how exactly did you get involved in fitness and the industry in general?
So, it's always been a part of my life ever since, I started playing basketball and things of that nature. And, I had kind of a cliche story, someone gets hurt and then all of a sudden they meet a physical therapist and they go through the whole rehab process of, if you hurt your ankle or your knee and things of that nature. In my case, I hurt my knee, and, the process of getting back into playing ball took like 2-3 months, but I was better than I was before. And that inspired me because you're able to not only get someone back to what they used to be, you're actually able to help them excel even more, because now you're giving them these techniques, you're giving them these instructions on how to train better, how to rehab better, and basically make their entire rehab recovery safe. And most importantly, that they don't get hurt again. So, that inspired me the most. I've always been fascinated with just, the movement of the body and being able to just, have my own critique, have my own ability with my hands to be able to just help people in that way. Movement has always been, medicine, so that is what really pushed me into this physical therapy field.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I remember that injury even plagued you a little bit into college, and you had an issue with your tibial plateau or part of your tibia? What exactly was the issue?
Oh, you got good memory, boss.
Good. There we go. Look at that. Look at that.
Hey,
I remember it was something unique.
Yeah. It basically was patellar tendonitis is what they diagnosed it as.
Okay.
And basically it was that, and then a mixture of cartilage loss as well. Just pretty much not bone on bone, but it got to a point where it was pretty much at that level. And yeah, you're right. I dealt with that through college, possibly because of different muscle imbalances that I was having. And, the whole thing is that even though you got injured years ago, you still have to keep up, that regime and continue to take care of yourself, because if you have something wrong on one part of your body, it can affect the wholeness of you. So I was battling that, man, and it took me out sometimes for basketball, and lost my stress reliever there. But that's great. You remembered it though. That's good. I remember I talked to you about that for.
Yes, sir. Well, hey, man, I've been hooping a lot lately. Basketball, as you remember, is one of my favorite things to do. So we'll have to link up with that. Get some shots in.
Of course. I see you in the field actually. I
Yes,
see you in
sir.
a lot of football stuff.
Yes, sir. We'll get it down. We'll get it down. Now, you also mentioned in the beginning, of course, DPT, but also got to mention the CSCS. So did you get your CSCS just kind of to enhance your experience as a physical therapist? Do you maybe have aspirations of working exclusively with athletes? Like, what was the reason you got that?
Mainly, my major was exercise science, as you know. So it was kind of a nice bridge, a nice way to complement the exercise science degree. The exercise science degree basically prepares you almost specifically for certified strength and conditioning specialist certification. So it was a good way to not only make myself more presentable for physical therapy school, but also just to enhance my quality as a trainer, as a therapist, to be able to take in those things that we learn in exercise science and learn in strength and conditioning. And also, a lot of physical therapy concepts go hand in hand with strength and conditioning. And, sometimes therapists kind of stray away from that strengthening component, and they like to, take it a lot easier and do less volume. But really, that's one of the things that kind of promote, cartilage growth, promote bone density, and it's important to use these concepts with the CSCS. So if anyone, is aspiring with physical therapy, the CSCS is a very good gold standard to start with as you're getting into the physical therapy realm.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I always tell people, like, because it's not required for you to get a personal training cert to go to PT school. So I always tell people, man, if you can get some coaching experience, if you can get a good cert like ACE or NASM or ACSM, or even better, get your CSCS, man. And not only, I guess a couple of things. One, hopefully you get some training experience. Two, if you want to maybe work with athletes specifically, like, or if you have a client who is an athlete, you at least have that experience. And like you mentioned, Key, like, you can actually take people and take those concepts, because a lot of them do go hand in hand. They're not mutually exclusive. You're strengthening and you're conditioning. So they go along with the program, man.
And it's important too that it's not just the athletes, because I even use these concepts with neurological patients, and just using that type of program and concepts to create neuroplasticity. And you don't just use it with athletes wise, you can expand it even to the geriatric population, the pediatric population, the neurological population, and it goes on and on. So yeah, it's been great to have that foundation for sure.
Yes, sir. Now, I'm so happy I get to say this. You are a doctor of physical therapy. You are officially, you're licensed, certified, check mark, all that good stuff. You actually have gone through the process. So I want to give some words of wisdom for people who are watching. So I know depending on the school, it's a little bit different, but overall there's some overlap. So can you kind of just outline the process of how you applied and got into PT school?
The daunting, dreadful process. Yo, it was not fun, bro. I can't lie to anyone. It's a sucky process. You have to first, number one is do your research. I know a lot of people say that, but it's very important because you have these schools. Well, let me tell you about my process. I had to do my research first, and basically because you have these schools that basically have set requirements, and these requirements may include chemistry 1 and 2, biologies, college physics, kines, and things of that nature. And the reason you do your research is because these schools mainly want these classes, and they may overlap, where you can kind of stick with a group of classes and be able to qualify for multiple schools. So I basically went that route where I would apply for schools that basically had the same requirements. That way I didn't waste any time trying to just focus on one school, and you kind of, you don't put your eggs all in one basket. The main portal for all of this is PTCast, which basically has every single school for physical therapy. And they basically, it's basically where you apply. You basically have that one portal where you put in your application, your transcripts, and send them off through that portal and basically get in touch with all those schools. And another thing I did that's very important was I actually reached out to the admissions. And the reason why that's important is because you actually get to find the opportunity to actually sit down with those who are admitting the students. And nothing is better, to be honest, to be able to sit one-on-one and have them see you, meet you, and you're able to even bring that back in essays, bring that back if you get interviewed, and they see that you are, you see that you're very in tune, see that you're very interested. You know, so that was mainly my process there. And then I had volunteer hours. Volunteer hours was something that's key. And I think a lot of people kind of get misconstrued on on volunteer hours. You know, it's more important to have a diverse amount of hours rather than, you know, 200 hours in just an orthopedic setting, or, you know, 100 hours just in a neuro setting. It's better when they see 20 hours here in neuro, 30 hours here in ortho, 20 hours here in geriatrics, and it's spread out. That makes you, you know, made me more competitive as well. Yeah. And the interview, of course, is super important. It is, mine was pretty casual, actually. FIU, we were talking about sports. We were talking about, you know, casual, you know, conversations. There was nothing serious that we talked about. And I think they did that because it's like, you want to be able to engage with people. You know, that's an important characteristic as a therapist, because sometimes I'm not even putting my hands on someone. Sometimes it's just a conversation, and you see a transformation in the person just off being able to talk to them, being able to make them laugh and smile, you know? So the interview pretty much for me was casual at FIU. And, you know, I've heard other interviews that are kind of cutthroat and very, you know, you know, a lot more rigorous. But for the most part, you know, the interviews are something where you're supposed to bring your personality, bring out your character. Yeah. And applying early is key as well. You know, do not wait close to the deadline. The faster you apply, the more likely your application will, you know, be presented first. And then GRE, Jesus Christ. GRE.
Listen, bro, you're complaining about it, bro, but I'm pretty sure you smoked that test. Even by my standards, by your standards, you're probably like, I didn't do that good.
I actually did not smoke it, man. I think I got like, what was it, like a 296 or something like that.
I remember how the scoring works. I took it and I was like, minimum requirement, cool, done. I'm done with it.
And then keep moving.
Yep.
That's how it is. That's how it was when I did my boards. As long as you pass, you pass. Yep. But the GRE, man, it can weigh in, you know. A blessing is if you had applied during this whole COVID thing, a lot of schools actually waived the GRE. Yeah. So that would have been a very good blessing for you. I'm so sorry that you missed it. If you are all watching now, I'm sorry you missed that. But a lot of schools waived it, man, and they just weighed in like GPA, volunteer hours, and things of that nature. So, you know, that was my process pretty much. I stuck to the game plan of what schools required. You know, I applied to like 3 or 4 schools. I called them up. I had met with them, did interviews with them, and they basically, you know, found interest in that. And you know, it's a blessing that I was able to get into, you know, a public school, because tuition can be pretty pricey out of state. You know, it can be pretty pricey. You know, so it's a blessing that I was able to stay in state and you know, do my thing here, Florida.
Pretty close. You're from Tamarack, Miramar?
Miramar.
So not, I mean, obviously FIU is not super close, but you know, you didn't have to go to like Orlando or Tallahassee or anything like that, you know?
Right. I actually got accepted first at USF in Tampa.
Great school.
And yeah. And Travis goes there. You remember Travis Hall?
Yes, of course.
He actually graduated already, and he's doing stuff at the VA.
That's awesome.
So he's doing this thing, and basically up in Tampa, I got accepted, and the minute I was like, all right, Mom, we got to go up there and start finding rental properties because, you know, I got to stay somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
The minute we decided to go, FIU sent me an email saying I got accepted. And I was like, whoa, yeah, God was already looking at me like, you're not going there. You're going to FIU, you know? So, yeah, man, it's a great thing when you get accepted. Great thing.
What I'm hearing from overall, if I had to like sum up your advice, kind of like what you said when we talked about the CSCS, is make yourself competitive by getting diverse experiences, right?
Mm-hmm,
right? Because when you're going up against these people, sometimes it's classes of 20 or 30 people that can be very small. You're getting all the kids that have 4.0 GPA. You're getting all the kids that have taken all the rigorous coursework and have experienced maybe personal training or strength and conditioning. So what are you going to do that makes you different? Because they're all top of the class students.
Right. That's very true. And it's a class of, my class was like 60 people, and we had applicants, I think it was like 800, you know, applicants. So, you know, you have to be very diverse to stand out. And, you know, your experiences also play a role too. You know, if you were, you know, a trainer, they look at that. If you had like a PT tech position, things of that nature, those things also help. You know, your letter of recommendations and things of that nature, especially if you got it from someone, you know, already in the school that you want to apply to. It speaks volume. So make diverse.
Connections, man, and make a good impression. Like Keandre said, like, I think people get scared to call because it's like, oh, I'm going to bother them and they're going to be mad at me. It's like, listen, if you're respectful and you like call or talk to someone, 99.9% of the time, they're going to be at least respectful, right? And what's the worst they can say? Like, hey, I can't talk, just apply. Like, okay, cool. But at least if Keandre went and talked to people, even if it was just a phone call conversation, not even like visiting in person, hey, like that's another time that they see his name and hear his voice when it comes time to select who is going to the program, man. And as little as that seems, that could be the difference.
Exactly. Sometimes that even puts you, I remember my professor told me he was interviewing a class coming up, and basically the student repetitively came to the admissions office like 3 times before the deadline to make sure everything was good, to chop it up with some of the professors. And that alone, you know, pushed his application above like 100 or 200 people. And I was like, wow, so he got the inside trading there. You know what I mean? But
it shows drive, man. It shows that you want to be there because they're investing 3 to 4 years of time into you.
Right.
So they want to make sure that you're actually into it and you want to be there.
They do. There's a lot of people who just apply and then hope and pray. But who's gonna stand out more? The person that hopes and pray, or the person that hopes and pray and does and take action, you know?
That's right.
You definitely, you know, and if your place is all the way in Pittsburgh and you're in Florida, okay, I get it. You probably can't fly up there, but definitely make the email make the
Email,
call.
call, man.
Yeah. Definitely do that. It only will help you, to be honest. It only will help you.
100%. So, okay, we got a good outline of that process. Now, you went through your program. We got some cool questions we're getting to. So, thinking back over your program, which in part was through COVID, what would you say was like the most difficult part of your program? It could be like a class or a certain subject or dealing with whatever it was. What would you say was like the hardest thing you had to go through?
You mentioned COVID, and COVID actually changed the entire scope of the program. It went from, you getting this hands-on teaching, every day pretty much to, okay, now we're on the computer.
Mm-hmm.
Now we got to figure out how to do these hands-on activities without actually meeting in person. And I think that was a struggle for a lot of people, because now you had to get out of the comfort zone of class and actually try to meet up with people individually on your own time, while COVID was going on. Because when it was the height of COVID, you couldn't see groups of 5-10 people or something like that. I think it was at that time, it was like you can't be anywhere in a room of more than like 5 or 7 people. It was that bad. So that changed the scope of the practice, and it hurt a lot of us, honestly. It hurt a lot of us practical wise. Practicals were pretty much every 2 weeks. You'll get tested on different tests and measures you're supposed to do, and you have people who struggled because of that. So that affected a lot of people. It affected me as well. But luckily, I had a nice group of people who I could be able to do this stuff with and who are comfortable. And that's a main thing that you want to do in PT school too. Get a nice group of people who are going to be disciplined, who are going to work with you, who you have chemistry with, and pick each other's brains. Because honestly, the more you know, the more you learn, the less you know. So, definitely something to look into. And I think clinicals took a lot out of me, bro. They they were probably the most dreadful part, because you go from school. My school was actually pretty lit, because like we had 3 days where we were in class, kind of like 8 to 5. But then Thursday we'll have a half day, and Friday we'll have off. So
Okay.
yeah. So you got time to recuperate, time to enjoy life and things of that nature. But then you go from that to 40 hours a week. Some people got like 60 hours a week. And you're not getting paid either. You know what I mean? So it's that your first clinical, you're like, yay, I'm giddy, it's my first one, I'm nervous, yada yada. Your second one, you're like, okay, I'm starting to get this, I'm cool. Your third one is when it's like it becomes a drag, because it's like, I'm not getting paid, I know what I'm doing already, I'm basically the therapist.
Yeah.
And
you're free. You're free. You're free work at that point, man.
You're free working at that point, because you're already independent.
It's actually worse than that, Key. It's you're paying to work for free, because you're paying your tuition still.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Your tuition, you're paying to work for free. Exactly. That's a very good point. My goodness. You're paying to work for free, and I would see clinics have this. It's a great business model from them, honestly, because it's like, you have it was 2 therapists. They're called OrthoSport. I actually did my internship there, and they're in Davie. They had 2 main therapists and like 2 or 3, physical therapy students, and like a physical therapy assistant student. Literally free labor right there. You're not paying any of us. You're pretty much just teaching us. But it's like, we already know what to do in a sense. And it's, it's a great business model. But yeah, man, clinicals was the worst thing for me, because I had to get into this mindset of, I'm literally working for free. I have my gas, I have all these things to do. And it's like, oh my gosh, wow. And so you basically have 4 of those, 4 clinicals. They're like Most of them are like I think like 8 to 10 weeks, something like that. And you basically have this last one where it's just like the senioritis kicks in, and you just want to graduate. So those are the two main things, COVID and clinicals, man. Clinicals, oh my God, I can't, man.
You
Paying to
made it.
work for free.
You made it through. You made it through, bud. Made it through.
Yay. It was worth it though, I guess you could say. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
worth it. Mhm.
What would you say surprised you the most from your program?
Um, our program actually opened our minds to what physical therapy can do, especially technique wise. Like, I did not know we could do manipulations. I thought that was more in the chiropractic, realm. But you learn manipulations. You learn that you can do dry needling. Um, you learn that you can do cupping and different techniques.
Mm-hmm.
That could blow your mind. And I think what really surprised me too is what you can really do with your hands. You really can, mobilize joints and, create healing in a way for a patient just off your hands. And
Yeah.
it's great to see that. It's great to know that. And I think what's funny too is that like you can do things like mobilize horses. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can like
I
this
have a
that's
client who is a
hmm,
physical therapist, or former client, she's a physical therapist. She's thinking about going the route of being a horse PT.
mm-hmm. It's open. It's open to a lot of people. And what's nice thing too is that the new things you learn is like what you can do, and you can you work with little kids, pediatric kids, newborns. I did not know we had the, we had the ability to apply those techniques to newborn kids, horses. I don't know what will be next, but it it seems like the door is wide open
Yeah.
for therapists to engage in. So I think just knowing, just learning that we can do so much was surprising. To be honest with you, very surprising.
Yeah. It seems like the scope is always expanding. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys also deal with concussion protocol and even, like, in some cases, people who have suffered from stroke, right?
Yeah. We have that would be within our scope. And a lot of these things are getting updated too and implemented because of the doctorate level.
Mm-hmm.
When we had our masters, we were limited in the amount of things we can do. But when you have the doctorate, more doors open. So you can, like, for example, you can see a patient, I believe it's now 30 days without a doctor's referral. So the independence of a therapist is growing. I believe there's a lot of talk about us being able to order X-rays, imaging,
Oh, wow.
for patients. Yeah. So, we're evolving, and it's a good thing because, we're working one-on-one these patients, and the less that you're limited, the more that you can do for them. So yeah, man, it's very surprising the things that's opening up for sure.
That's amazing, man.
Mhm.
Now, what would you say is the biggest thing you changed your mind on?
Um, I would say career wise, at first I came in with that athletic, trying to treat athletes mindset, but then throughout the program, I recognized, like I was saying earlier with the CSCS, how you can apply these things to neurological patients. I don't know if you ever heard of NeuroFit,
Mm-mm.
but they're basically a clinic that apply these strength and conditioning principles to patients with stroke, patient with traumatic brain injuries, and they do phenomenal with patients' progress. So what PT school changed my mind in the fact that I don't just have to do athletes. I can bring in other parts of what I already know into neurological patients, into geriatric patients,
Yeah.
into you know, pediatrics. You know, there's always a lot of talk about what you can do with pediatric, you know, patients that haven't, you know, seen adolescence yet or bone maturity yet. So you can, you know, apply a lot of things to these populations that a lot of people don't know about, you know. So
Yeah,
that's changed my mind. It opened me up a lot
that's really
about it.
cool, man. Yeah, I've never heard of the neural film. I'm gonna have to look that up because that sounds really interesting.
Look on Instagram. They have a lot of videos. Um, I believe they're in Davie or something like that. Check them out though, man. They're doing a good thing, and I think they opened up a second location in Miami, so they're expanding.
Okay,
Yeah, man. It's very new. Um, it's doing a lot to like make a foundation for what you can do with neurological patients. That it doesn't just have to be you know, certain, you know, machines or tools that you have to use, but you can actually use strength and conditioning principles to make an effect on these patients, you know. So it's good.
I like that. I'm
Really
gonna definitely check that
groundbreaking.
out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this one's a little bit tricky question, so if you need to take time, please take your time.
Mm.
Thinking about like everything you've learned in the last 7, 8 years, right? From your exercise science degree through your CSCS, through going through your DPT program. What are some things, topics, etc., that you're still like, I'm not exactly sure like what the answer is on this, or I'm not exactly comfortable with what the research says about this in my field. Do you have any of those particular things where you're like still scratching your head?
Um, I think, you know, we learn a lot about we call it mobilizations. So we have this technique that basically you basically mobilize any joint, and mobilizing basically you have these different grades, 1, 2, 3, 4, and basically grade 1 is, you know, you're not going too much past soft tissue restriction, so kind of like, you know, stretching. You're not going too past, you know, the limit, and then all the way to grade 4 where you're pretty much going all the way past, but you're doing this to the joint, not necessarily um, the like the hip flexion movement. It's actually the bone on bone that you're actually mobilizing.
I see.
And there's different discussions on research on how effective it is, and you know, you do it on patients, and you know, I would say 60%, 70% of them really benefit. And there's a other part that really don't, you know, get much out of it. Um, so I think there's a lot of things like that with mobilization and, you know, different techniques like blood flow restriction that's been getting a lot of attention lately. And a lot of people have been using scalping, which is a type of soft tissue mobilization, basically sort of like a deep tissue massage. Cupping is something that's very popular now.
So some things are like the soft tissue techniques, or maybe more like the more so hands-on techniques, questioning the potential like validity, whether it's pro, not con necessarily, but like, are they doing what they're actually saying they're doing, so to speak?
Right. Exactly. You know, because it and what's interesting about it all is, yeah, that's kind of beauty of physical therapy, is that if this doesn't work, the cupping doesn't work, scalping doesn't work, let's try this instead. You know, so even though one thing may fail and you're not too sure why something doesn't work, at the end of the day, the main thing is get the patient better.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter what you do. We have things, you know, like placebo effect. If the patient's getting better with ultrasound, you know, and not much is really being done with ultrasound, what, you know, do you stop even though the patient getting better? You don't know. If the patient's getting better and they're feeling better and you're seeing improvements, don't, you know, break what's not meant to be broken.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
so
a tricky
yeah.
thing. It's a tricky thing, man. I always go, and I'm glad you actually like read my mind, because I was going to ask about placebos, but that's a whole other podcast, bro, because that's like a dilemma I go through all the time. I'm like, well, if it's a placebo, is that good? But it's helping them, so it is good. And so I kind of go back and forth. I'm like, well, as long as I inform them of like, hey, this is like what the research says, and like, I go on and on about like stretching and foam rolling. Like, does that actually help? It feels good. Exactly. Long term, does it really do much? It seems like probably not too much right now, but that doesn't mean my clients never stretch or foam roll, because it feels good. It gives them some temporary range of motion. They enjoy it. I just do my best to inform them of the decision. So I like do my part, I guess. But I hear you, man. The placebo is a powerful thing. If a client, especially I can imagine as the PT, having someone like frustrated and pain in front of you, I understand how that can be like, hey, it's bringing my client relief. I'm doing my best to do that. So I hear you, man.
Exactly. So yeah, man, there's a lot of things you can be unsure about, but at the end of the day, do what works for the patient. That's the utmost thing, or the client. That's the goal.
Patient-centered care. When it comes to
that's what it is.
Of course, right? Now, remind me, where are you currently at? Are you in a private clinic, or where are you located at?
Right now, I'm at Cleveland Clinic over in Weston, and I basically do a blend of both. So they have the inpatient hospital, and they have the outpatient. They have Neurological Institute, and they have they call it Cooper Center, which is basically like more of the orthopedic area. So I bounce around those three facilities and kind of get a mixture. Pretty much, I'm not gonna say everything in physical therapy, but a good range. And in the hospital, you see pretty much acute patients just coming out of surgery, like fresh out. I'm talking literally just got their anesthesia, cleared off. I'm seeing them like 30 minutes after they wake up. So you see that, and I see, patients who, the athletic population, month post-op, their ankle surgery or things of that nature. And I'm seeing, neurological patients, just had a stroke, TBI. So it's a good start for me, because I'm able to kind of get all of these disciplines and then hopefully apply it to the bigger picture in my life, whatever God has for me, So it's good. It's very good.
That's a cool mix of things you get to do, man. I like that.
Yep. Very good mix. I recommend that to any like new PT to, take your time and really find the spot that can give you the most bang for your buck, where you can learn the most. Don't just try to make the money, try to actually learn, because they'll pay off in the long run, for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Where do you want to take yourself in the future in the realms of the fitness industry and physical therapy? What's like the dream or goal that you have for yourself?
I would say there's a lot of new research and things that come out. And I think I want to be able to come up with my own type of intervention that can help patients. Something that I can apply that would work consistently. Of course, it'll take, research and things of that nature and trials and errors. But basically how there's concepts like blood flow restriction and concepts like PNF, stretching concepts is something that I want to be able to develop and kind of create my own type of program with that, own type of intervention with that, and hopefully be able to give it to, the community, give it to other therapists to use, and, just being significant in my community, and just being someone that people can trust as a therapist overall, is important,
Yes, sir. Well, when you find out your method of how you're going to change the industry, let me know at the Shift Method, and I'll make sure I have all my clients go to you or can do something with them from a programming standpoint, and we'll make it happen, man.
Yeah. I mean, because someone decided to do this, D. Someone decided that, these hands-on techniques can do something for the patient. Someone decided, that programming in this way and this type of volume can benefit the patient in a way. So why not us? Why
Absolutely.
not take that? Yeah. And
leave your fingerprints, man.
Yeah. Why not?
You could give one piece of advice, your best piece of advice, to someone who is maybe listening, or someone who's watching this and they're thinking about physical therapy school, they're aspiring to be a PT, they want to be, a phenomenal physical therapist. What advice you got for them?
Oh man, just one, ain't it?
Just one. Best piece of advice.
I would say keep exploring. So just continue to open your mind. Don't have tunnel vision. There's a lot of opportunities for you in terms of what you can learn, in terms of what you can get into. Don't just think, oh, I'm going to be a physical therapist for this reason and do that specific thing. Be open, because you can do many things with therapy. There are YouTubers out there who share their knowledge. There are people who write books of physical therapy who share their knowledge. There's people who mold horses. Don't limit yourself. Aspire yourself, aspire to be great, aspire to, branch out and be as diverse as possible, because you never know unless you put yourself out there. So keep an open mind would be my best advice for any aspiring PT.
Wise words from the man who's actually gone through the gauntlet himself. So take those to heart if you're listening out there. Key, I think that's a great place to stop, my man. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to come on here and hopefully give some people some good advice, some good laughs, some good sound bites. So thank you again. Where can people find you?
Okay, Instagram, the key to PT, so THEKEE, number 2, and then PT. Not sure if I have an underscore or not, but once you type that in, you should find it.
I'll make sure I put it in for him.
Yeah. And if you ever have any questions or anything like that, feel free to email me. D-Man, you have my email. Keandre.maisdpt@gmail.com. Feel free to reach out, and we can chop it up. If you're aspiring to be a PT, I can help in terms of, guiding you in the right direction, giving you any advice you need, and preparing. And if you're already in PT school, maybe you're about to take boards or anything of that nature, you need any assistance, let me know, yeah, God bless.
Excellent. And y'all know where to find me. I'm on Instagram and TikTok at @the_shift_method. Hey, again, spots are closing up for virtual clients. I only got 2 spots left. So if that's something you're interested in, doesn't matter if you're in South Florida, Indiana, or on the West Coast in California, man, I've worked with people across the country. So if you're interested, DM me on Instagram or head to my website, theshiftmethod.org. Click any of those take action buttons to fill out the form, and I'll contact you within a day or 2. Of course, the store is still open. You still got apparel. Please cop one if you'd like it. Help support the channel, help support the brand. And as always, thank y'all so much for listening. Keandre, you have a wonderful night, brother. All right?
Chief.
Take care, boss.